I wish I could sing better to introduce Yumna and say that, you know, where do I begin to tell the story of how great a gal can be. You know, Yumna and I have had a wonderful association, I would say, for this last year and a half, very intimately, because she's the vice president of the Bangalore chapter. And she's been a great support. I've had so much to learn from Yumna, you know, whether it's towards tech, whether it's how to juggle. I thought I could juggle stuff, but when I saw her, I realized that, my God, she's a master juggler. So it's been absolutely fantastic. I think that's no other word for it but fantastic, this relationship that we share. She's almost as old as my son, maybe just slightly older. So, you know, she could, but, you know, this is what ELSA does to us. You know, we are all, it cuts through all definitions, barriers of age, of what you studied, when you studied, or what you do, and brings us together as a beautiful community. So thank you, Yumna. Thank you, Molu, as I also call you, because I love the sound of Molu, your pet name, for being there for us, for ELSA. I go back a little into her journey, as she shared, and the many firsts that she achieved. So Yumna went to the UWC, which is, as most of you may know, is the United World College in the US. She was the only Indian to, and it's the IB program. So I assume you went for the 2 years of IB. And it's a very tough selection process, because I've been involved with some workshops which I did with them, but it's a killer program to sort of get into. So Yumna was the only Indian in her batch actually at UWC. Then she moved on, while she was at college, she joined, she was with Isaac, and she was not only in India as a representative, she also went to the headquarters, and then she was in Rotterdam and all that with Isaac. Then she went to LSE, which she has not mentioned anywhere, but LSE in London. And where else were her firsts? Her firsts were that she joined Cadbury. And in Cadbury, she actually was pushed the agenda where there was no advertising and campaign for little ones, you know, youngsters below 8. And she also worked on the obesity program and made sure that, the size, the wrappers, you know, everything, the size of the chocolates were all kept in mind, thank God. I mean, I didn't meet her then, though actually Sanjeev did meet her in London when he was with Cadbury too. So that was with Cadbury. And the gutsy Yumna that we have is the first person, first woman, first girl, I would say at that time, to be on the committee of the Turf Club in Bangalore. And the first one ever. And there's a story she shared, which I find may take a little longer to say. When she went to enroll for the elections, the guy at the counter said that, oh, you want to vote? And she said, no, I want to stand. And she said that, you know, his eyes popped out, that no woman has ever sort of been on this turf, like, you know, you young one, how can you? So she is the first woman to be on the committee of the Turf Club. She is also the youngest woman on the Bangalore Club Committee. And this is her second term. And let me tell you also, she had the highest votes when she stood. Definitely in the first term, and I know definitely in the second term too. She is vice president and founder trustee of Art Mantram. So her heart is wired in many right places and doing good for the artisans and artists of the country. And of course, she's an ELSA. Above all, she's an ELSA and the vice president of our Bangalore chapter. And currently, she's curating a poetry festival. Her facets are many. You know, she's really like a diamond, which you just shine a little bit, and there are many facets sparkling out there. So to quote from Yumna's this thing, it's not her quote, of course, but she says, I took the one less traveled by, and that is what has made the difference. And I think I'm going to leave Yumna to tell you more details about that. I could go on and on. We were sharing some stories even 10 minutes before we began today. But over to you, Yumna, and to really hear about the paths, the journeys that you took, and the impact they've created on you and for all of us ELSAs in turn. Welcome.
Thank you so
Over
much.
to you.
I really feel like my cheeks are hot. Can you see them? Thank you. I think you took some of my stories away, but that's okay. I won't begrudge. And I will correct as I go along because you give me more credit than is due. But thank you so much, Vandana. What a lovely introduction. Uh, I initially, was a bit like, how do I even begin? And then I'm like, I'm really talking to family because I think, we know each other so well. One of the things that the lockdown has been good for is that we've gone beyond, the social scratching of the surface of hi, hello, aap kaise ho, kind of politeness down to these like sharing of inner selves. So here, if I had to, this is my moment. So these are the three sort of truths that I would share with you. And I think the first one is that really you're enough. For whatever your innermost dream is, you're enough. You don't need to be anybody different. You don't need to be, you don't need to be smarter. You don't need to be more beautiful. You don't need to be a man. You don't need to be more accomplished. And sometimes I feel at the back of my head, who am I telling this to? Am I telling it as much to myself as I am to you? Because I look at the faces across and it's not like any of you have limited yourself in any way, right? I know all your accomplishments, not all, but I know a lot of your accomplishments in a lot of the fields. But I think that is one of the things that sometimes we draw these Lakshman Rekhas, not just in the conventional ways, but also in the unconventional ways, not just societally, but inside ourselves, where you say, okay, no, it's too difficult, or I don't have the time, or, there is that quiet little voice that you kind of ignore but that is driving the bus that says I'm not good enough, or, or I'm going to fail. So why would I set myself up for failure? And in conjunction to this, the story that I was going to share was that one, you're enough as you are, and all you need to do is push through that resistance, and that resistance will be internal and that resistance will be external. And the story that I was going to share was the story that Kaveri asked me to share a couple of weeks ago at another ELSAConnect session, which was about the BTC election. So Vanna's right. I am the first elected member of the BTC. But one thing about the BTC is it's a particularly strange club. They elect all their members. So I wasn't actually elected into a committee. I was elected into being able to elect things and people. And, I elected myself into a position where I had a voice. Because even though racing's been around forever, the Maharajas used to race, they used to race camels, they used to race elephants, they used to race horses. The British came and said, okay, now these are the rules by which the gentlemen race. And so you have this institution that's 125 years old that says that this is how racing will be run. And it's one of the ways it's very different from like the Bangalore Club or, even the Bangalore Golf Club, because it's the turf authority. So it runs the sport of racing. It sets the rules. It is a legitimate sporting authority in its own right. And the thing about equestrianism that most of you may not know is that it is a place where on the racetrack or in any equestrian arena, gender holds no sway. So you would have women jockeys and you'll have men jockeys in the same race, and you'll have men who do dressage and compete against women who do dressage, and women who do show jumping against men. It's one of the few arenas in the world, sporting wise, where gender is not a limiting factor or a differentiating factor. And even if there are a few races which are, just by gender, the colts or the fillies, by and large, gender is irrelevant. So it blew my mind that you had this like sport authority that said that actually women for some reason shouldn't be, voting members as far as running the sport is concerned. And I couldn't understand why, and this has been going on 125 years. Women have stood, women have lost elections, and my dad was offered membership at one point, and he said, no, I'm too busy. And then he became a member in 2006, much later. And at that time, I was with Cadbury in the UK. And every time I came down, I'd be like, I don't understand what's wrong with this institution. Why don't women stand? Why don't they elect women? And then I moved back to the country and was doing all of these other things. And every time March rolled around, Dad would get busy. Because the thing about the BTC is that, like, unlike most other clubs, there's no long waiting list. You put in your papers and you stand for election. There is no qualification. Anybody can stand. I mean, you don't even have to have passed high school. Like, anybody can stand for election to the Bangalore Turf Club. And And the only way you then get elected, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you say elect me versus elect everybody else? And the way you do it is you actually go and you meet every single member who has a vote, which is 350 members. So you have to go and you have to say, this is who I am. This is why you should vote for me. This is why I am the better candidate. So you're canvassing every single member. So every March, Dad would be busy. And then I said to him, I want to stand. And he said to me, well, here are 3 people. If you can convince them, if they say that they will support you if you stand, then I will support you if you stand. So I talked to these people, and 1 year they kind of laughed me off. And I also forgot about it. You get on with your life. You have other dreams. I mean, things go on. So the next year I went back and I said, look, I'm still serious about this. I'm going to stand for election. And they said, okay, well, in that case, stand and we will support you. And the reason I'm sharing this story with you is it was my most intimate political experience with seeing how you shift hearts and minds. Like, you start off with 350 men, of which 5 have said, okay, we'll support you. 300 men or 325 men who basically say this is not the space for you. But they really can't justify why. They can't say why. They'll tell you things like, it's because it's a den of vice. It's no place for a young woman. And you kind of say, but what disqualifies me? And so you've already heard the story about, hello, I'm talking to ELSAConnect. You've already heard the story about, I went to give in my nomination form, and, people knew by then that I was standing. So the secretary accepted it and he gave it to the clerk, and the clerk took it and he came back like a minute and a half later, saying, no, woman. Like, it was literally like, I had the plague. I was like, yes, woman, but that's okay. You can go ahead. Sorry for those people wearing headphones, by the way. I might have been a bit too loud. And then you're like, no, from filing the nomination paper all the way through all of these conversations with individuals saying, where everybody starts out saying, no place for women, through to, a few people saying, you will lose this year and you will lose next year and you will lose the year after, but continue to stand, through to, sweetie, I'm talking, so you can say hello quickly. I want to say hi. They're all listening. Hello. Okay, done. Through to people saying that, sorry, unfortunately I have a extra person, so
hi,
going to take 1 more minute.
We'll
okay?
humor him for a minute. Hi.
You want to say hi? Someone's saying hi to you.
Yes, sorry, I didn't have my video on.
See,
your mom's talking to us and telling us very interesting stories.
Okay, it says Yumna and Agastya, and now I need you to go.
Hi, Agastya. We do want to hear your mom's story now. Agastya, you put your mom on mute.
Okay.
You're on mute, Yumna.
Yeah, I know. Apologies, I'm back. So I'm going to just take 1 second. Can you give me 1 second?
Of course.
And while Yumna's taking that 1 second, let me add, which I wanted to earlier, but with the whole long list, that she is an exemplary mom. I mean, I've seen how she engages with Agastya, with Aggie, as we call him. He's very much a part of our ELSAConnect, and everything, whether it's from baking a cake to whatever, she is balances. I said other things, but balancing a mom and all that is okay. I snatched that moment to complete what I wanted to say. Go for it, Yumna.
Okay, so, and I think the second round where, people started saying that you will lose this year, but stand next year and the year after, and you'll see a gradual shift. Through to the last round where people were picking up the phone on my behalf, and, I didn't elect myself into that club. Like, 350 men elected me, and they elected me by changing their minds. And I think for me, that was a huge learning. That it is about communication. It's about not accepting people saying no to you when it's something you want to do. So that's point number 1. That don't let anyone tell you that you can't. Don't let anybody tell you you're not enough. Just follow your dream, because you are enough. Okay. The second thing that I was going to share was about the power of organization. And what I was going to share here was, we had this discussion, all of you know, a lot of you were there. We did the annual dinner last year. For the first time, the annual dinner moved out of Delhi and was hosted by Bangalore. And we had lots of fun. I mean, those, you would have seen us along the way. Sahana did that amazing video that said, Namma Elsa, everybody come. And so this fantastic, or this fantastic journey that we had. And part of it was, we didn't want to do it. We didn't want it to be just like another dinner, right? So what was going to make it different? And how was it going to reflect who we were? So we were very clear that it needed to include sustainability, that it needed to include something meaningful. And I remember Vinita Bali saying, pick something big, like talk about garbage, talk about the lakes, pick something that's meaningful, and you can say, Elsa cleaned up this lake. And we went back and forth, and as a group, we decided actually that wasn't going to be the approach that we were going to take. The approach we were going to take was a challenge to each of us to say, here's, the college was 60 years old, the 60th batch was being celebrated, and we said we'll take the span of 60 days and we'll run a 60-day challenge, and everybody can then take on something that either you've been meaning to try, or you're passionate about, or you just haven't made that commitment that I'm going to do this, and you try it for 60 days. And that was the 60-day challenge. The reason I bring it up is because I want to showcase two wonderful people who are on this call, which is that we redid this when the lockdown happened. Neelu said, why don't we revisit the challenge? Why don't we look at, people who've done it? Why don't we reconnect? Why don't we open a new challenge? And you had Smita, who had taken on a 60-day challenge and done amazing things, who said, okay, it made such a difference to my life. I am going to take on new 20-day challenge. And I'm not only take on one, I'm going to take on 3. So she took on one, which was that she wasn't going to iron her clothes or anybody else's clothes in the house. There was a second one, which has completely slipped my mind, and I didn't have the time to look it up. And there was a third one where she said, I commit to raising $1.5 lakh for my NGO every day during this lockdown period. And in those 20 days, and she blew that target out of the water. So for Sampark, she has raised 85 lakhs since the middle of March, when the lockdown started, because she basically said that this was her personal challenge, and then reaching out through the organization, reaching out through her own organization, reaching out through all of her network, she made it happen. And it's gotten to the point where I had my board meeting of my trust 2 weeks ago now. The chairman of my trust board is Chiranjeev Singh, who's also chairman of her trust board. And I had envisioned, we're all isolated, we're all, by ourselves, we're all depressed. Let's do a global poetry festival. We'll get 60 poets together. We'll luxuriate in the succor and the comfort and the sensuousness of language, and we will cross barriers, and this big dream. And he said to me, that's all fine, but Sampark has raised 85 lakhs. And why don't you make this a festival for a cause? So now my, lovely global poetry festival, which had no pressure, has now become, festival for a cause. But I wanted to illustrate the power of organization. And the other example I was going to use was Vandana's. So Vandana said at the beginning of this lockdown that, people are going to be isolated and alone. And why don't she said, this is my challenge. I am going to host a sort of a coffee evening every day for the lockdown period, where people will get together and check in on how they're feeling emotionally. And that idea, that commitment of 20 days has now become ELSAConnect, which is this wonderful community. It's a sense of bonding. It's allowed us to know each other in different ways. It keeps growing. I mean, this is the 40-some session, I'm guessing. And, it's that the power to magnify your dream comes through working with people. That whole bit about the sum of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. I remember when I used to, Vandana again touched on this, but I was recruited I was working here for Art Mantram, running the Rorik Centenary celebration. This is before the Habba days, for those who've been in Bangalore for a long time. We took over all the private galleries in the city, all the public galleries. We took over the open spaces, said, amateur artists who have nothing, we will give them a stall. We worked with CKP to do this. And that became Chitra Sante, which today has like 7 lakh artists that, come together and show their work. And we worked on this for a year, this huge Rorik centenary celebration supported by Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Culture. And in the interim, because I'd left ISEC by then, I had all of these people who were my clients when I was in ISEC, who were contacting me for roles. DHL had a role, PwC had a role. And let's be clear, they were not saying here, here's a role on the platter. They were saying, we'd like you to interview for this role. And I was like, no, I'm too busy having fun. So this is not what I'm going to do. And we ended up getting everything almost close to the point where it was to go. And unexpectedly, we had to shift the festival. And when we had to shift the festival, I got this call that came from a lovely woman who headed HR at Cadbury, who said that, we are putting together a response team because it's in the middle of this obesity crisis and we're having to shape what Cadbury is going to say. And Cadbury, for those of you who've been to the UK, epitomizes chocolate, right? It's actually the world's number one, it used to be when I was there, the world's number one chocolatier, the world's number two confectioner, and the world's number 3 soft drink maker after Pepsi and Coke. And so they were the forefront, right? I mean, these were the floggers of sugar and fat and creating all the problems, and this generation of kids are going to die before their parents, and shut all the Cadbury factories down. And so Cadbury said, okay, we're going to put together a team that works across regions and functions, reports into the board, and it's going to shape our response. So they called me and offered me a spot on that team. It was a very small team, 3-person team. There was me as the analyst, there was a director, and there was a support person. And anyway, where the story is going is I ended up taking that job. And I was at that time, I would have been maybe 24 or 25. And I'd get very het up, because you're constantly, whatever policy you made, whether it was that we're not going to advertise to kids under 8, it had to be a uniform policy. You couldn't say that this is something we're only going to apply in like the developed world where obesity is a problem. You had to apply it in South Africa and Nigeria and India and all of these other markets where actually your target demographic was kids. But you can't say that, okay, these countries are excluded because, it's their main sales avenue. So there's all of this like convincing people inside and then fighting with people outside and working with, Nestle and Kraft, because everybody was coming up with their own solution to say, this is how our product fits into your lifestyle. And we had to work with them and say, this is the standardized. So I'm very proud when I look at that part of my life. You look at any packaging, you look at the back, that GDA, the General Daily Allowance, came out of a small team that I was a part of that worked across industry. And then if you look at any Cadbury packet on the front, it says "Be Treatwise." That came out of, something we did. So we did so much work at that time. But I was this firebrand. I'd, charge into my director's office and say, we're not doing enough, or how can these people be so stubborn, or, whatever was my angst of the day. And she would say to me that, we're a $3 billion company. And when you shift a company of this size 1 degree a year, in 10 years, you've moved it 10 degrees and you made a significant impact on the world. And what that taught me was by doing what we were doing in that time, we shifted not just Cadbury, but we shifted, and it wasn't us alone. It was us in concert with, with the rest of the food industry, with the WHO, with parents organizations, with school organizations, with our own internal sales and marketing forces. We changed the landscape of the food industry in a significant way that continues today. It wasn't, a patch that was put on just while that was the hot issue of the day and then was removed. So I guess my second point is that organizations amplify, so one, don't restrict yourself and you're enough today, and, follow your dream, whatever it may be, even the ones that are too secret to share. And then the second is, work with people because they help you achieve those dreams. They make you so much more. They allow you to skip the boring bits in the middle. They float you to the end. It's the magic of people. It's wonderful. And if there's a third thing that I don't know, I'm not doing a time check. Are you keeping track of the time, somebody? Sometimes I get carried away. 4:32, I need to stop. Last thing, because the way we're raised, people say women are more emotive, we're better communicators, better in touch with our feelings. I completely attribute that to how we raise children, that girls are raised one way and boys are raised another. But I do think that all of this, the dreams that you have, your ability to work within organizations, all of it is precipitated on your ability to communicate, because communication helps dreams become reality. It's about being able to reach out and, collaborate. It's about being able to share a dream and therefore manifest it. It's being able to identify your fears and then push through them. So these are my 3 messages of my talk. I've taken way longer than I thought I would. So yeah, questions, I guess, Vandana?
Yes, open to questions. And while the questions roll out, I want to ask Jija something. Jija, may I? You know, Yumna was narrating to me a very interesting incident very recently, actually, in Petra, when the two of you had gone. And then suddenly she hopped off the bus to catch up with a friend of hers from UWC after a long, long time. And then her network on her phone just wasn't working. And I want to know how you responded. I mean, I've heard her side of it, but I'd love to know how you responded. And of course, you know, you yourself are very gutsy, having one of the first police officers our country has had. You're a trailblazer in your own right, Jija. So share with us something which may be very intimate, and if you both don't mind it being shared with the group.
No, not at all, Vandana. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to just, say something in this intimate group of ELSAConnect. As a matter of fact, she just hopped off this bus and she told me that she'll be back by 8 o'clock at night. This was 4 o'clock. And she went off to West Bank. And for the past 4 days, we've been seeing all these gun-toting youngsters and, you know, these Palestinians running helter-skelter all the time, and gunshots and, news of bomb blasts and things like that. And she was supposed to be coming back at 8 o'clock, I think. And 8 o'clock came. I was okay till then. 8 o'clock came. I was fine. 8:30, 9 o'clock, and no connectivity. 9:30, I, like any other mom, really panicked. You know what to do. And you can't do anything. I just asked the person who's the tour operator. She said, ma'am, no connect at all, no connection with anything. And do you have the contact number of her friend? I said, no. I mean, she just came and told me. I was sitting in front of the bus and she was at the back. And then as we were reaching a bus stop, she came and told me, whispered in my ear, Mom, my friend is waiting for me. I'm just hopping off the bus at the next stop. And so I said, when will you be back? Back before sunset? He said, yeah, 8 o'clock, I'll be back, or 7:30, whatever to at that time, get the approval. And then she came at, I think, 11:30 or 12 or something. I really was in pieces, I should say. By, I think, 11 o'clock or something, I just went and woke up everybody, other people. And I said that if we have to organize a search party or something like that, we have to approach the embassy. Let's be ready, kind of a thing. But anyway, at that time, just before midnight, I think there was a knock on the door, and there she was. That's all.
Very good.
That's enough.
Thanks of the mother. There's a question from Usha. Usha, would you like to turn on your mic and please ask your question?
Hey, it was so inspiring to listen to your big points. So my question is, would you reverse mentor somebody with a big dream?
So Usha, I responded saying, I have no idea what reverse mentoring is, but my instinct is always to say yes. So yes, I will reverse mentor despite not knowing what you're asking.
Thank you. Fantastic. I can tell you what reverse mentoring is and then you can do it for me.
Awesome. Will do.
Thank you.
Acha, okay, no questions.
No question?
Chat session, yeah. We don't have to be all muted, shooted and everything. This is all like my chuddy buddies from college who like never saw me in college. You know, I'm too scared of saying this. Sahana will say, "Jhap marungi."
Sahana has a question.
Sahana's jhapping me for saying I was never in college.
She has a question.
No, I just wanted to add that I know that Yumna writes very well. So if Yumna has any more questions, how about reading out your poems to us?
Sorry, what? What was that, Sana? I didn't catch that.
I said I know that you write very well. So if nobody has any more questions, how about reading out one of your poems to us?
No, I'm sure lots of people have lots of questions, Sahana.
Yeah, Anjana has one. Anjana's hand is up.
Okay, so Yumna, my question is, do you speak Malayalam? Is it your mother tongue? I'm assuming it is, but if it is, do you speak it or do you understand it?
Mansalam, which is the
Okay.
extent of my spoken Malayalam, which is that I understand. So I used to go back for the summers. And so I understand it, but actually, yeah, and you're right, I'm 50% Malayali, so more Malayali than anything else. 25% Punjabi by blood, 12.5% Marathi, 12.5% Bengali. My husband calls me a Kannada speaking Mallu Sardar. So, you know, quite a lot of languages for me to pick from. So I only understand Malayalam, unfortunately.
Okay, wonderful. No, the reason I asked is because, my kids have always thrown this at me because we tended not to speak Malayalam at home, even though it is our mother tongue. And I don't know why. And, they hold it against me. So I was just wondering whether, you feel the same way, but not being fluent in Malayalam or whatever.
So my mother might hold this against me. Is she here or is she gone? I think she's still here. Maybe I shouldn't share the story.
No, you must. You must.
So my parents decided, because they used to speak English to each other, and my father's parents used to speak English to each other. So so it was like very much an English speaking house, and they decided that I needed to be raised with Bharatiya language. So everybody spoke to me in Hindi until I think I was like, I don't know, 2 or something, at which point I turned around to my mother, and Hindi is like her 3rd or 4th language or something, I said to her, you don't really speak Hindi well, do you? At which point all her attempts at only continuing to speak to me in Hindi went down the drain. And then we switched to being an English speaking house. But I think those 2 years of Hindi have actually stood me in fairly good stead. My husband laughs at me, but I think that there is some degree of instinctual Hindi in me. Ha, Neelu.
I don't have a question because, but I just want to say that, from the day I met you, and I think it was at the ELSA talks, I must share this with everyone. I think that's the same day when she had, as usual, she says yes, and she took up the, she went to the moderators workshop, and we selected her as she was the next one in line, Sahana did it, Vinita did it, and then Yumna. But she had some, at the Bangalore club, there was some campaigning going on, and she comes in and she tells me, I've left my papers at home. So will you just tell me everything? And just 5 minutes left for the start, introduction of the speakers and everything. And, like the series of sponsorships and names, everything was happening, and she was doing it. And I just look at the lady, she says, relax, don't worry. And she just spent 2 minutes and she was absolutely fine there. So I said, wow, this lady, so I was dying for her and I wanted to throttle her because everything was perfect. And where have we got this woman from? It was just a pleasure, Yumna, from that day onwards, a journey of knowing the energy you had. You got always had a different idea, which expanded our horizons. So it's been beautiful, actually. And I have learned a lot, as Vandana said, from you. It's I have to say that it's even today, even yesterday, there has been so much of discussion on so many things. You're always into it. Whether it's just a poster, the idea, she gets everybody involved, and she doesn't want to leave anyone. And I think keeping that in mind, she's young, and I don't feel you young. I feel you're just a contemporary of mine. And a big hug to you, Yumna. It's a pleasure knowing you.
Thank you, Neelu. I feel like these are all verbal sugar cubes. I'm like storing them in my heart. Like next time I feel really sad and bad and upset, I will like put up this recording and listen to every minute of it. So yeah, thank you.
In fact, talking of being an ultimate chiller, Yumna is definitely one. Yumna, will you share the story at the Botswana border, please?
The Botswana border story. Oh God. Okay.
Yes.
The Botswana border story. Okay. So
briefly.
The Botswana border story is, when we were in ISEC. So actually, I don't know what Yamini and Ambar think of me. Like I met them always, at the canteen. I would scrape into class and scrape out of class. And so I'm sure they thought I was like the most terrible student ever. But what I was busy doing was ISEC, right?
I disagree.
You completely disagree. So sweet.
There we go.
Well, I was scraping out too, so I had no opinion.
That's true. Yamini and I. So what I was going to say was ISEC is, basically the world's largest youth-run organization. Okay, so everybody in ISEC, at least when I was there, was under the age of 27, and you run this huge organization.
Yeah.
And on the board of ISEC India is like Ratan Tata and all that. So he'd actually be in board meetings with you. So that's the kind of access, and like you're expected to be professional, etc., etc. So my big stories are I met Kofi Annan and I sneaked. So I used to have to bribe MG, to like let me like sit my exams, because I would say, oh, I was Mary Robinson just came back from her tour of the refugee camps, and I was in the room with her, and here's the same day release as all of the international papers of what she said. I had to do all of these jugaad. But anyway, this can be edited out of the public domain. We don't want this going into the public domain. But regardless, ISEC. So we were running this big leadership development seminar. It was in Africa. It was in Botswana, actually. So we went into Johannesburg and spent a few days meeting corporates, etc. I was there as the international representative, me and Kenny. Both of us were on the international body coming to run this conference for Africa. And if you go by road from Johannesburg to Botswana, which is the only way to go really, it's about a 5-hour journey in this rattly little bus, and you're through the savannah, and Francistown is the capital of Botswana, and the border is very close to Francistown. So we get there at about maybe 4:30, 4:45 in the evening, and we get off the bus to get our visas and all sorted. And in a lot of the times when ISEC is working, we work with the government. So the government, organizes everything for all of the attendees of the conference. And we get there, and Kenny's visa and mine haven't arrived. So the bus leaves us behind and goes off with all of our luggage and everything. We tell them, please tell the office there, the ISECers, that, we're stuck at the border. And there's nothing else to do with savannah. It's like literally, if you haven't been, it's just, open prairie lands and scrub and like wildlife, right? There's nothing else. Like one desolate, like one-story one-room building. So we're there, and then the two of us are there waiting, and you have these people who are getting increasingly worried. They're saying, this place closes at 5:30, and it's 5 o'clock, and now it's 5:05, and now it's 5:10, and we're going to lock and go away. We can't allow you into the country without a visa, and you will be outside with the wild animals. And we're like, there's nothing you can do. So like as soon as the bus left, like we pulled out our laptops. I hadn't got anything fun on mine other than some reading, but Kenny had Friends downloaded, so we were watching Friends. And you could see these guys really freaking out. Like these kids, we must have been, I don't know how old, 21, 22, 23. And we just sat there, and then sort of like, in this typical Bollywood style, right? This tiny little car that looked like a Maruti 600, if there was one, comes like whizzing up, and it's like, has all the dust in the air. And then you have these like young kids that spill out and race through the door, clutching sheafs of paper saying, from the foreign minister, here are their visas. And so we got on the thing and left, and it was good. I mean, it's a good story.
What about the lions?
There were no lions. They just kept saying the lions.
Kept telling you.
Yeah, they kept telling us. There were no real lions. I mean, there might have been lions at night, but we weren't there at night.
So you know how chill she is, because she's even illustrated that part that there could have been lions waiting for their prey at night.
She's a true ELSA. She's a true ELSA.
Yeah. Jump in at the deep end, as they say. Any questions?
Amber was an outstanding timekeeper. Ask us in the EC meeting from the first day. We said, "What is this girl?" But but it's been fun. I have to say that because there's silence here, so I must share these things with you. She'll just come to the point. No, the topic, we have this much left, the agenda left. So it's like, oh my God, that we must have you. It's nice.
And very much about painting the bigger picture.
Yeah. True. That's true. A visionary. Yumna is definitely a visionary. She's always about the bigger picture.
Someone said
and I've rarely heard her say no, to something. Yeah. Very, very rarely. I mean, it's not that she doesn't say it. She did say it once, but that's about it. Just about once in this entire experience. Anybody else, please?
Kaveri has given a name for a book for her. Milu, bata. Born to Lead.
Yeah, Born to Lead. She says she can visualize you on the cover of a book called Born to Lead.
Born to Lead.
Yeah.
No, but then, so, okay, the basic thing that I don't think I actually verbalized, my entire point of this whole talk was, some people are born that say they have a dream, right? I'm going to cure cancer. I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to save the world, whatever it is. And I think I think life is basically a journey between birth and death, right? Like, and if you don't have a big dream, then don't miss the little adventures along the way. And in fact, I think people who have big dreams sometimes miss the little adventures along the way. And the little adventures are they're all the fun. You know, like, you know, in Botswana, like the greatest delicacy is actually like these really fat slugs. They're like caterpillars, and they're like this big, and they're like kind of really gross. And of course, I was the international representative at this big festival, and so the TV crew was in my face, and they were offering me a platter, and then you have to eat it. Yeah, you have to eat it. I mean, it's just what it is. I mean, this is life. You live life. Chuso the marrow out of life, people. You have only one life. YOLO, as the kids say.
So correct. I'm completely with you on that, Yumna. Live every minute, right?
So yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, smell the flowers and climb the mountain and, you know, do all these things.
Right.
So I was in Mexico and we wanted to climb Popocatépetl, and we went to Popocatépetl. It was the first of the year, and Popocatépetl was smoking. So then we said, oh, but you know, we've come to climb the mountain, the volcano. But you know, they said, you can't climb, sorry. Then we drove to Iztaccíhuatl, which is the neighboring volcano. We climbed Iztaccíhuatl. So climb every mountain, like literally. So that's my message, guys. Thank you for the platform. I appreciate your giving me an opportunity after I was crying that my one chance to appear on ELSAConnect was spent on telling you how to use Google Forms. Thank you.
It was a great learning, let me tell you also.
Yeah. That was just the third day, Yumna. We had to fill up dates. Initially, we didn't know who's next, so we wanted some things. You were the third session.
Yeah, and
so.
we wanted variety is the spice of life. You might read one of your poetry or something. Please do. We'd love to hear something.
I think we're one, running out of time, and two, I wanted to thank.
Oh, we have time. We have time. It's just, of course we have. What the open mic, you shared something.
Shall I tell you another story? I'll tell you another. So I have lots of stories, but they didn't fit into the arc, so I didn't tell them. But I wanted to really say thank you to Ambar and thank you to Yamini, because I dropped them a note, like these people I remember from college who I haven't talked to, I think in I don't know how many years. And I said,
this was such a pleasure, Yumna. Absolutely a pleasure.
Thank you. And these are the people who will like infuse energy into ELSA and Delhi, which is my hidden agenda, and ELSA and Mumbai. Anyway, always an ulterior motive. Anyway, so what I was going to tell you was when I was in high school, you had to train to, you know, wilderness.
Where were you? In which school?
United World College. So this is, I was representing India, the United World College. For those who don't know the United World Colleges, they, like I said, you know, these are all organizations that were set up in the wake of the Second World War, you know, to bridge the huge disastrous devastation and the suspicion between countries. You know, these are all organizations that were formed at that time to bring people together. So the genesis of UWC is that bring kids together in their last 2 years of high school, between 16 and 19, when their opinions are formed, but their prejudices aren't set in concrete, and get them to study together, right? So there are 10 of these schools around the world. Oh, no more now, maybe 16 now. And they're all need blind. So if you're the best candidate, it doesn't matter if you don't have the money to go, they will fund you to go. Mm-hmm. And of course, I didn't have the money to go, but they very kindly funded me to go. And, you know, and the other thing I really need to say, sorry, because I know some of you are going to drop off as we get closer. I have to say, not everything has been easy, but I have been the recipient of great good fortune in my stars, in my parents, in my family, and in my friends. So lots of gratitude, because without them, I would not be 1/10 the person I am, and not have had 1/10 the opportunity. So all of you, you're all included, by the way. Thank you so much for unanimously making me vice president when I wasn't even in the country. Thank you. So what I was going to say was, UWC, we were there, then, you know, you have these programs. So you do wilderness, and then you train if you want to. You train to become a search and rescue qualified person. And then you can train further to be a search and rescue leader. And so sometimes people get lost, you'd get called out on these searches. And, you know, these are huge tracts of land, the mountains, huge, right? So, I mean, you're searching your little grid, and, you know, very often you don't find anybody. But by searching that grid, you establish that they're not lost in that area. So it's vital that you do that. And we were out, it was the weekend, and it was a long weekend coming up. There was a heavy snow forecasted, and we got information that the 2 hikers who were lost, you know, this elderly couple had been found dead, relatively close to where we were. And so even though, you know, I must have been 17 at that time, and then the call came through that either they they ask us, who was the school, if we would help in removing these bodies from the wood, or they would sort of have to stay out through the weekend because of the snow forecast, because more teams wouldn't be able to get there in time to get them out before the heavy snowfall. And of course, when you get asked in that moment, you know, there's the immortality of youth. You think nothing can impact you, nothing can affect you, and you just have the job in hand in front of you. And, you know, I think it would be, I mean, there were kids who were mature enough to say, no, I don't want to do this. I was not one of those kids. I thought I could do it, and I did do it. And so we pulled these two, you know, the son of the two people who passed away was waiting, and, you know, the whole thing was very traumatic. But so we took these the bodies out of the wood, and afterwards we had this session, right? They had organized a psychiatrist to come and talk to us, because it was very unusual to have kids pull bodies out of wood. So and I remember I just listened to this person talking and talking, and felt like they were talking in a different universe. You know, nothing was like registering to me. And I remember just getting up and walking out at one point, and my wilderness instructor followed me out, and we just sat quietly, you know, and sat on the roof on the edge looking down, and we didn't say anything. I mean, he just checked in with me, are you okay, whatever, and we hung out. And I say that to share the importance sometimes of silence in communication, that you can communicate in so many different ways. You know, it doesn't have to be the words that you say. It's about the space that you give people. You know, it's because very often I think when we speak, it's about, are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? You know, this is my point. And even when you listen, sometimes you listen from a place of defensiveness, or you listen from a place of, you know, non-compassion. But really effective communication, I think, is allowing that space for both people to inherit. So I'm taking off my Gyan hat now. I am no longer imparting any wisdom, sorry, to all people who already have lots of wisdom. I'm sure I'm teaching my grandmothers how to suck eggs. You'll all like tomorrow turn me over your laps and whack my bottom and saying, "Kya soch rahi the? Hame kuch pata nahi hai."
That's one of your favorite expressions, by the way. Huh? You throw it at us, grandmother's teaching stuck eggs. Any other questions? Otherwise, Neelu, I'm going to ask you to announce the next session before we close today.
Yes, so thank you, Yumna. It was such a joy, and it's so interesting. The next session is by our dear Pushkina, and she'll be sharing about the evolution of startups in India. And the last 10 years, she's being involved in a lot of things, and it's amazing how she's. It's something very close to our heart. So please be here on Tuesday. And love you, Pushkina. Can we see you here? She's got her video off. But why I said it's amazing, because Yumna, Pushkina came together as two little girls who came into our group. Sahana will mention, I mean, it was such a joy to have them in the mentor program, which we got introduced to them in the ELSA talks. And they were our team, and they are still the ELSA talk team. We had such a joy of ideas. And Pushkina, nobody will believe she's the youngest, but I tell you, you really feel 18 when you're with them, and truly an ELSA. And it has been a joy, Yumna and Pushkina. And I'm so proud that on Tuesday we have her. And please be there to listen to dear Pushkina.
I must mention this, by the way. I must mention this. I remember the first moderator session, right, which Vinita was training all of us, and I met Yumna there as well. And I was like, oh, so here's another young, you know, I was like, maybe she's just 2-3 years elder to me, and that's about it. And then subsequently I got to know she's a mom, she's got a kid, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, so you can imagine I feel this is what connects everyone, the gripping of youth, in spite of whatever number you want to talk about. And that energy comes through in our discussions, in how we go about doing anything. So yes, that memory is etched forever.
Acha, can I
Very well captured.
Please go to Pushkina's session, because it's going to be awesome, because she I think speaks from a place of great experience. But can I also quickly say, shamelessly I shall plug, pushing through my resistance of wanting to promote. I'm at the BIC on next Saturday. Art Mantram is at the BIC. I'm in conversation with Sujata Bajaj. So BIC people, please, I know you come to sessions anyway. Please make a point to come to me. I'd love to talk to you in that Zoom session thing. And then the second,
please send a link.
I will send a link. And then the second thing is that we're doing this big poetry festival in July, 23rd to 26th. So, I mean, even if you don't like poetry, please try and come for at least 5 minutes if you feel like it, because I'd love to see you there. You will bolster me. So thank you. Acha, now handing back to you guys. I've done.
No, I have to say something else. I don't know whether Sahana remembers. So in the moderators workshop, we walk in and as usual, Yumna walks in. She was in a little dress. And actually the people didn't let her come in. And they said, you know, you're not, students are not allowed to wear this attire. She said, I'm not a student. I've come as a, you know, as a guest of Sahana. It's a very interesting session. Since it's your session, I think we can, whoever wants to come in, welcome. But I have to say, share that. And I looked at her up and down and I said, oh, really? So this is quite an interesting woman. Sahana,
yes.
Mute.
The vital point that Neelu forgot to mention is that the location of this moderator workshop was Mount Carmel College.
Mount Carmel,
otherwise this story won't make sense.
So thank you all for coming. Thank you for staying.
Bye everyone.